All right, so get ready, because today we are taking a deep dive into amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS.
That's right.
We've got a ton of research in front of us and a really interesting seminar from the Lancet.
hmm
So we're going to really unpack the complexities of this notoriously tough disease.
Yeah, it's like we're giving you a powerful lens to examine all the complexities of this condition,
Yeah,
going beyond just the surface level overview,
exactly.
really getting down into it.
So ALS is a neurodegenerative disease that specifically targets motor neurons
Yeah.
in the brain and the spinal cord. And these are the cells that allow us to do all the voluntary movements,
hmm
walking, talking, breathing, everything.
Everything. Yeah, and as these motor neurons degenerate, the muscles that they innervate weaken
Right.
and waste away, and this leads to progressive loss of function,
Right.
leading to the really challenging aspect of ALS that there's no cure and very limited treatment options.
Okay, so let's start unpacking the epidemiology of ALS, starting with its incidence in Europe.
Okay, so the incidence in Europe sits at 2.16 per 100,000 person years. And it's worth noting that men are slightly more affected than women in sporadic ALS, but the incidence is equal in familial ALS. So we're looking at a lifetime risk of 1.400 for women and 1.350 for men.
Okay. And when do we typically see this disease emerge?
So peak onset age varies. For sporadic ALS, it's 58 to 63 years old.
Well,
But for familial ALS, it's earlier, around 47 to 52.
right. So genetics clearly play a role. Let's break that down further. Let's start with familial ALS, which makes up about 5 to 10% of cases.
Yeah, so with familial ALS, we see clear inheritance patterns.
Okay.
Research has identified 13 genes directly associated with it, including SOD1, TARDBP, FUS, ANGSHI, and OPTN.
Right.
Each of these genes plays a distinct role, and we see different mutations contributing to the disease.
So let's take SOD1 as an example. What makes this gene so significant in the context of familial ALS?
Okay, so SOD1 is responsible for encoding the copper zinc superoxide dismutase enzyme. Mutations in this gene have been strongly linked to ALS, and research suggests that these mutations lead to a toxic gain of function.
Okay.
So instead of functioning normally, the mutated enzyme starts causing harm, damaging motor neurons.
So we're not just talking about a loss of function, but a detrimental gain of function.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so what about the other genes you mentioned, like TARDBP and FUS?
So TARDBP, also known as TDP-43, encodes a protein involved in a range of cellular processes, including gene expression and RNA regulation. Similarly, FUS encodes a protein involved in gene expression and RNA processing.
So it sounds like mutations in these genes, TARDBP and FUS, have a similar consequence.
Precisely, yeah. Mutations in both can lead to the formation of abnormal protein clumps within neurons. These aggregates disrupt the normal function of the neurons, contributing to cell death.
So there's a pattern emerging here. Genes involved in crucial cellular processes, when mutated, can disrupt the entire system, specifically targeting those motor neurons.
Yeah, that's a good observation. It really underscores the complexity of ALS at the molecular level.
Now let's shift gears to sporadic ALS, which accounts for the majority of cases at about 90%. What do we know about its genetic component?
That's where the puzzle becomes even more intricate. While there's undoubtedly a genetic component to sporadic ALS, it's less straightforward than familial ALS. Research into susceptibility genes is ongoing, but it's a very challenging area of study.
So while familial ALS presents with more defined genetic targets, sporadic ALS seems to be more about subtle genetic predispositions,
Exactly.
possibly interacting with environmental factors.
Exactly. And that's what makes the search for effective treatments all the more difficult.
Right. All right, so we've laid the groundwork with the basics of ALS, its incidence, and the genetic factors at play. But as we know, ALS isn't a one-size-fits-all disease.
Yeah.
Let's delve into the different ways it can manifest and what that means for prognosis, starting with the most common presentation.
Okay, so the most common is limb-onset ALS, making up about 70–80% of cases. This is where we see the initial symptoms involve a combination of both upper and lower motor neuron signs in the limbs. Patients experience weakness, stiffness, and muscle wasting in their arms or legs, often starting on one side of the body.
Right, and that can be quite debilitating, especially as it progresses. What are some of the challenges that patients with limb-onset ALS might encounter?
Yeah, so imagine struggling with simple tasks like buttoning a shirt, gripping objects, or walking steadily. These are everyday challenges for those with limb-onset ALS, and it can be very frustrating and disheartening as these abilities gradually decline.
Absolutely. And it really emphasizes the need for supportive care and assistive devices to help patients maintain their independence and quality of life for as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about bulbar onset ALS?
So bulbar onset ALS affects about 25% of patients. This form initially targets the muscles responsible for speech and swallowing,
Okay.
leading to difficulties with communication and eating.
Right. That sounds particularly challenging, affecting such essential functions.
What specific symptoms might we see in bulbar onset ALS?
So think about the muscles of the face and tongue. Bulbar onset ALS can lead to slurred speech, difficulty chewing and swallowing, and even drooling.
Yeah.
It can be incredibly isolating and frustrating for individuals to lose their ability to communicate effectively
Right.
or enjoy meals with their loved ones.
Absolutely. And it just underscores the importance of early intervention from speech therapists and dietitians to help manage these symptoms
Yeah.
and maintain the patient's ability to communicate and nourish themselves.
Yeah.
Now, we've discussed the most common presentations, but there are less common forms of ALS like primary lateral sclerosis and progressive muscular atrophy.
Right.
Let's explore those.
So, primary lateral sclerosis, or PLS, is a rare form of ALS that involves purely upper motor neuron involvement. This means the initial symptoms are related to stiffness and spasticity rather than weakness and wasting. Okay, so it's like the signals from the brain are getting scrambled, leading to uncoordinated and stiff movements.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Now, progressive muscular atrophy, or PMA, is another rare form, and it primarily involves the lower motor neurons, leading to muscle wasting and weakness as the primary symptoms.
So, while they all fall under the umbrella of ALS, the clinical picture can vary significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And this variation isn't just academic. It has a direct impact on prognosis and survival.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, starting with the general prognosis for ALS.
Unfortunately, the overall prognosis for ALS is poor. The average survival time is about 30 months from the onset of symptoms. About 50% of patients die within that time frame.
That's incredibly difficult to hear.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that the type of ALS can influence survival.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
So, for instance, bulbar onset ALS tends to have a more rapid progression and poorer prognosis compared to limb onset ALS.
Right.
And those less common forms, like primary lateral sclerosis and progressive muscular atrophy, typically progress more slowly. And patients with these forms tend to have a longer survival time.
It's a stark reminder that ALS is a highly variable disease, and the prognosis can vary significantly based on the specific presentation.
Yeah,
But even with those statistics, it's important to remember that individual experiences can differ.
absolutely.
Hmm.
It's crucial to maintain hope and focus on maximizing quality of life for individuals with ALS. Some individuals live for many years, even a decade or more after diagnosis.
Okay, so we've got a sense of the different ways ALS can manifest and the potential impact on survival. Now let's dig into some of the more specific clinical features of ALS, starting with a peculiar phenomenon known as the split hand phenomenon.
Oh yeah, the split hand phenomenon. It's a fascinating clinical observation we often see in ALS. It refers to the disproportionate wasting of certain hand muscles,
Okay.
specifically the thenar muscles, responsible for thumb movement, and the first dorsal interossi, which spread the fingers.
Right, so it's intriguing that certain muscles are more vulnerable than others. What insights does this split hand phenomenon offer into the progression of ALS?
So researchers believe it's linked to the unique way these muscles are connected to the brain's motor cortex.
Okay.
They have denser connections with the cortex, potentially making them more susceptible to the damaging effects of glutamate excitotoxicity, a key mechanism we'll discuss later.
So it's not just a random occurrence,
Right.
but a potential clue to understanding the specific pathways of degeneration in ALS.
Exactly.
Fascinating. Now, we've been discussing ALS primarily as a disease affecting motor neurons. However, there's a significant overlap with frontotemporal dementia, or FTD.
Right.
How does this cognitive component fit into the picture?
So this overlap challenges the traditional view of ALS as solely a motor neuron disease. The discovery of the TDP-43 protein has been instrumental in understanding this connection.
Tell me more about this TDP-43 protein and its role in both ALS and FTD.
So TDP-43 typically resides within the nucleus of a neuron, playing a crucial role in regulating gene expression. But in both ALS and FTD, We see abnormal clumps of this protein forming outside the nucleus in the cytoplasm of the cell.
So the same protein misbehaves in the same way in two seemingly distinct neurological diseases.
Precisely. This suggests a shared pathway, a
Right.
common thread in the development of both conditions.
That's remarkable. What implications does this have for individuals with ALS? Does this mean they're all at risk of developing dementia?
Well, not necessarily. It doesn't mean every ALS patient will develop FTD,
Hmm.
but studies show that up to 50% of those with ALS exhibit some level of cognitive impairment, and a significant portion meet the criteria for FTD.
So it's not just about the physical limitations. There's a potential cognitive and behavioral component to consider as well.
Yeah.
What specific cognitive functions are affected?
So the cognitive symptoms in ALS often mirror those seen in behavioral variant FTD, with executive function being the most commonly affected domain. So imagine struggling with planning, organizing, decision-making, and impulse control. These are the hallmarks of executive dysfunction.
So in addition to the physical challenges, individuals with ALS might also be dealing with changes in their personality, behavior, and ability to think clearly.
Mm.
This adds another layer of complexity to the care and support they require.
Exactly. And it raises important questions about how we approach the holistic care of individuals with ALS, considering both the physical and cognitive aspects of the disease.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that ALS is a multifaceted disease that demands a comprehensive and compassionate approach to care.
Hmm.
Now let's dive into the intricate cellular mechanisms underlying ALS. What's happening at the cellular level that leads to the degeneration of motor neurons?
It's a complex interplay of factors, a multifactorial puzzle that researchers are still piecing together.
Right.
We know that several cellular processes and potential culprits contribute to the neuron's demise.
Let's try to untangle this complex web, starting with one of the central players you mentioned earlier, glutamate excitotoxicity.
Right, so glutamate is the most abundant excitatory neurotransmitter in the central nervous system, essential for communication between neurons.
Right.
However, in ALS, evidence points to dysregulation of glutamate levels, leading to overstimulation of motor neurons.
So too much of a good thing in this case becomes detrimental.
Yeah.
How does this glutamate dysregulation happen?
One theory points to the dysfunction of astrocytes, the star-shaped glial cells that support and protect neurons.
Right.
Astrocytes play a crucial role in regulating glutamate levels, but in ALS, they might become impaired in this function, allowing glutamate to build up in the synapses.
It's as if the cleanup crew isn't doing its job and the excess glutamate starts wreaking havoc.
Precisely. This excess glutamate binds to receptors on motor neurons,
Okay.
triggering a cascade of events that culminates in cell death. It's like an electrical circuit overload,
Right.
leading to a catastrophic burnout.
Okay, so we've got glutamate overload as one culprit. What other factors contribute to this cellular mayhem?
So oxidative stress plays a significant role.
Okay.
It's an imbalance between the production of free radicals, highly reactive molecules, and the body's capacity to neutralize them.
Right, so it's like rust forming on a car, but this time it's happening inside our cells, causing damage and dysfunction.
That's an apt analogy. Free radicals can damage various cellular components, including DNA, proteins, and lipids, ultimately contributing to cell death.
Okay, so we've got glutamate overload and oxidative stress working against these motor neurons. Are those protein aggregates we discussed earlier the ones formed by TDP-43 and FUS involved in this cellular chaos as well?
Yes, they contribute to the problem. These aggregates, formed by misfolded proteins, disrupt normal cellular processes and trigger inflammatory pathways, adding further insult to the already vulnerable neurons.
So it's like a domino effect, with each factor contributing to the overall deterioration of the motor neurons. What about mitochondria? I
Right.
understand they're also implicated in ALS.
So mitochondria, the powerhouses of the cell, are also affected in ALS. They can become damaged and inefficient,
Okay.
hindering energy production and further compromising the health of motor neurons.
So it's a multi-system breakdown. Communication problems, energy shortages, toxic waste buildup. No wonder these cells are struggling to survive.
Indeed, yeah. It's a complex and devastating process. We're still working to understand all the intricate details of this cellular downfall.
Now, you mentioned the dying forward and dying back hypotheses earlier. Could you elaborate on those competing theories about the origin of damage in ALS?
Okay. So, the dying forward hypothesis proposes that the disease originates in the brain's motor cortex,
Right.
where upper motor neurons reside.
Okay.
These upper motor neurons then send signals down to the lower motor neurons in the spinal cord.
Right. And according to this hypothesis, the damage in the cortex triggers a cascade of events that leads to the death of lower motor neurons, right?
Precisely, yeah.
Yeah.
It suggests that glutamate excitotoxicity is a primary driver of this downward cascade of damage,
Right.
originating in the brain and spreading to the spinal cord.
So it's like a chain reaction, starting at the top and working its way down.
Yeah. Now, the dying back hypothesis presents a different scenario. It suggests the initial problem lies at the neuromuscular junction. That's the point where a motor neuron connects with a muscle fiber.
So instead of a direct attack from the brain, this hypothesis proposes a more localized origin of damage.
Precisely. It suggests that a deficiency of trophic factors, molecules that support neuron survival, might be the initial trigger.
So instead of an aggressive assault, it's more like a gradual withdrawal of support that eventually leads to the neuron's demise.
Exactly. The dying back hypothesis suggests this lack of support leads to a gradual deterioration of the neuron, starting from the neuromuscular junction and moving back towards the cell body.
Both theories present compelling arguments.
Mm.
Is there a definitive answer as to which one is correct?
That remains one of the big mysteries in ALS research. There's evidence to support both hypotheses, and it's possible that both mechanisms contribute to the disease, perhaps in different ways or in different individuals. This complexity highlights the challenges in developing effective treatments that target the root cause of ALS.
It seems like we're dealing with a multifaceted puzzle with multiple pieces contributing to the overall picture. This makes the search for a cure even more challenging.
Absolutely. And it underscores the need for continued research to untangle this complex web of cellular processes
Right.
and identify the key drivers of the disease.
Okay. So we've delved into the intricacies of ALS, from its epidemiology and genetics to the diverse ways it presents and the cellular mechanisms driving its progression. Now let's shift our focus to the practicalities of diagnosing ALS. If someone starts experiencing symptoms that raise concerns about ALS, how is the diagnosis made?
So diagnosing ALS is a delicate process, often a journey of elimination and careful clinical evaluation. There's no single test that definitively confirms ALS.
So how do doctors approach this diagnostic puzzle?
Right.
What are the steps involved in determining if someone has ALS?
So the process begins with a thorough medical history,
Okay.
meticulously gathering details about the patient's symptoms, family history, and any potential exposure to environmental toxins. It's like detective work, searching for clues to piece together the puzzle.
So the initial steps involve gathering as much information as possible
Yes.
to paint a comprehensive picture of the individual's health history and potential risk factors.
Exactly. The next step typically involves a comprehensive neurological examination.
Okay.
This assesses muscle strength, reflexes, coordination, and signs of muscle wasting or fasciculations, those involuntary muscle twitches.
So if someone presents with muscle weakness, wasting, and those telltale twitches, it raises a red flag for ALS. But as we discussed,
Right.
those symptoms can also manifest in other conditions.
Precisely. That's why ruling out other possible diagnoses is crucial.
Right.
We need to differentiate ALS from other conditions that might mimic its symptom,
Okay.
such as certain neuropathies or myopathies.
So it's a process of elimination,
Yeah.
carefully considering all the possibilities and ruling out other culprits before arriving at a diagnosis of ALS. What tools do doctors use to differentiate ALS from other conditions?
So electromyography, or EMG,
Oh.
is a key diagnostic tool. This test involves inserting small needles into muscles to record their electrical activity. In ALS, EMG can detect denervation,
Okay.
meaning the muscle fibers are no longer receiving signals from the motor neurons. It's like listening in on the communication between nerves and muscles,
Right.
revealing any disruptions in that signaling.
That's a powerful tool for understanding what's happening at the neuromuscular level.
Hmm.
Are there other tests that help with this differential diagnosis?
Yes. A nerve conduction study, or NCS, is often used in conjunction with EMG. NCS measures the speed and strength of electrical signals traveling along nerves. In ALS, NCS can reveal slowed conduction velocities, indicating nerve damage. So it's like checking the integrity of the wiring,
Okay.
looking for any signs of fraying or damage.
So EMG assesses the muscle's response, while NCS focuses on the nerve's ability to transmit signals. Together, they provide a comprehensive picture of the neuromuscular system.
Precisely. These tests are invaluable for distinguishing ALS from other conditions that might present with similar symptoms.
Now, I understand that specific criteria are used to guide the diagnosis of ALS. Can you tell us about the Ellis-Scorio criteria and their role in the diagnostic process?
So the Ellis-Scorio criteria, developed by the World Federation of Neurology, provide a framework for classifying the level of certainty of an ALS diagnosis. They consider the clinical signs,
Okay.
such as the presence of upper and lower motor neuron signs in different body regions, alongside the results of electrophysiological tests like EMG and NCS.
So it's not a simple yes or no,
Right.
but a spectrum of certainty based on a combination of clinical observations and test results.
Yeah.
What are some of the limitations of the Ellis-Scorio criteria?
One criticism is that they can be too stringent, particularly in the early stages of the disease, potentially missing cases where symptoms are subtle or limited to one body region. This delay in diagnosis can be frustrating for patients
Right.
and might delay access to treatment and support.
So while the Ellis-Scorio criteria provide a valuable framework,
hmm
they're not without limitations. Are there alternative criteria that address some of these shortcomings?
Yes. The Iwaji criteria were developed to address some of the limitations of the Ellis-Scorio criteria. They're more inclusive and place greater emphasis on EMG findings, which can detect early signs of denervation even before clinical weakness becomes apparent.
So the Iwaji criteria offer a more sensitive approach,
Mm.
potentially catching those early cases that the Ellis-Scorio criteria might miss.
Exactly.
This emphasizes the importance of using the most up-to-date and comprehensive diagnostic criteria
As
to ensure timely and accurate diagnosis. Now let's talk about neuroimaging and its role in diagnosing and understanding ALS.
So neuroimaging is a fascinating and rapidly evolving field in ALS research. Traditionally, its primary role in diagnosis has been to exclude other conditions that might mimic ALS.
So, like other diagnostic tools, neuroimaging helps rule out other suspects.
Exactly. However, advances in neuroimaging are providing valuable insights into the structural and functional changes occurring in the brains of individuals with ALS.
What are some of the key neuroimaging techniques being used in ALS?
Yeah.
And what information do they provide?
So magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI, is commonly used. It allows us to visualize the brain and spinal cord in detail,
Okay.
looking for signs of atrophy, the shrinkage of brain tissue.
So if certain areas of the brain, particularly those involved in motor control, show signs of atrophy, it could be a clue.
Precisely. Another technique gaining traction is diffusion tensor imaging, or DTI. This method is particularly useful for assessing the integrity of white matter tracts,
Oh,
the bundles of nerve fibers connecting different parts of the brain. It's like examining the brain's wiring, looking for any signs of damage or disruption.
fascinating. How is DTI used in the context of ALS?
So, in ALS, DTI can detect abnormalities in the corticospinal tract, the major pathway carrying motor signals from the brain to the spinal cord. Damage to this pathway can explain the muscle weakness and other symptoms characteristic of ALS.
So it provides a visual representation of the damage occurring in these critical communication pathways.
Exactly. DTI can also assess the integrity of other white matter tracts,
Okay.
providing insight into the cognitive and behavioral changes sometimes seen in ALS. It's a powerful tool for understanding the broader impact of the disease on the brain.
It's remarkable how these technologies allow us to peer into the brain and see the physical manifestations of the disease. Are there other imaging techniques being utilized in ALS research?
Yes. Magnetic resonance spectroscopy, or MRS, is another valuable tool. This technique allows us to measure the levels of specific chemicals in the brain, providing insights into metabolic processes and neuronal health. It's like a chemical analysis of the brain, revealing any imbalances or abnormalities that might be contributing to the disease process.
What specific insights does MRS offer in the context of ALS?
So in ALS, MRS can detect abnormalities in certain metabolites, such as N-acetylaspartate, a marker of neuronal integrity. Reduced levels of N-acetylaspartate could indicate neuronal loss in specific brain regions.
So it provides a quantitative measure of neuronal health
hmm
and can help track disease progression over time.
Precisely. It's a powerful tool for monitoring the course of the disease and potentially assessing the effectiveness of new treatments.
It's exciting to see how neuroimaging is advancing our understanding of ALS. What promise does it hold for the future of diagnosis and treatment?
Neuroimaging is revolutionizing how we understand ALS. It holds tremendous promise for developing more effective diagnostic tools, monitoring disease progression, and ultimately contributing to finding a cure.
It's a beacon of hope in the fight against this challenging disease. Now, Having explored the complexities of diagnosis and the insights offered by neuroimaging, let's turn our attention to the all-important question of treatment. What options are available for individuals with ALS?
Unfortunately, there is no cure for ALS.
Right.
And the treatments available have limited effectiveness in slowing disease progression.
That's disheartening news.
Yeah.
Despite the advances in understanding the disease, we're still searching for a cure.
hmm
What is the current approach to treatment?
So the current focus is twofold: disease modification and symptom management.
Okay.
Disease-modifying therapies aim to slow or halt the progression of ALS, targeting the underlying mechanisms causing the damage.
So it's about getting to the root of the problem, trying to stop the disease in its tracks. What options are available for disease modification?
So despite extensive research, only one drug, riluzole, is currently approved for this purpose. It's thought to work by reducing the release of glutamate, the excitatory neurotransmitter we discussed earlier, which can overstimulate and damage motor neurons.
So it's attempting to prevent that glutamate overload we talked about, protecting the motor neurons from excessive stimulation.
Exactly.
What impact does riluzole have on disease progression and survival?
So riluzole doesn't cure ALS or reverse existing damage,
Right.
but studies show it can modestly extend survival, typically by a few months.
So it's not a miracle cure, but it offers a glimmer of hope, buying patients some precious time.
Mm-hmm.
What are the limitations of riluzole? Are there any side effects or drawbacks?
So riluzole can cause side effects, such as liver enzyme elevations, nausea, and fatigue. It's also important to note that it's most effective when started early in the disease course.
Right.
So that underscores the importance of early diagnosis and intervention.
Absolutely.
The sooner treatment begins, the greater the potential benefit.
Now, with riluzole being the only approved disease-modifying drug for ALS, are there any other promising treatments on the horizon? What research is being done to develop more effective therapies?
There's a lot of active research exploring various avenues for new treatments, including gene therapy,
Okay.
which aims to address the genetic defects underlying ALS. It's like going in and fixing the faulty code in the cell's instruction manual.
That sounds incredibly promising. Can you elaborate on the different approaches being explored in gene therapy?
Okay, so one approach involves delivering a healthy copy of a gene to replace a mutated gene,
Right.
essentially swapping out a broken part with a new one. Another approach involves using gene editing techniques to directly correct the mutation in the existing gene, like fixing a typo in the genetic code.
Wow.
And there's gene silencing, which aims to block the expression of harmful genes contributing to ALS, effectively turning off the switch on a faulty gene.
It's exciting to think about the potential of gene therapy to address the root cause of the disease. Are there other promising avenues being explored in ALS research?
So stem cell therapy is another area of intense research.
Okay.
The goal is to transplant healthy stem cells into the nervous system,
Right.
where they can potentially differentiate into new motor neurons, replacing those that have been lost.
It's like replenishing the lost workforce with fresh recruits, restoring the function of the damaged nervous system.
Exactly. Researchers are exploring various types of stem cells, including embryonic stem cells, induced pluripotent stem cells, and neural stem cells. Each type has its own advantages and challenges, making this a complex field with many variables to consider.
It seems like stem cell therapy holds great promise, but there are hurdles to overcome before it becomes a readily available treatment.
Yeah.
What are some of the challenges researchers are facing in this area?
One challenge is ensuring the efficiency of stem cell differentiation,
Okay.
guiding them to become the specific type of neuron needed for ALS. Another challenge is ensuring the safety of transplantation, preventing any unintended consequences of introducing these cells into the nervous system.
Okay.
And finally, researchers are working on optimizing the integration of these new neurons into the existing circuitry of the nervous system,
Okay.
making sure they connect and function effectively within the existing network.
It's a complex process with many intricate steps, each requiring careful consideration and scientific ingenuity.
Absolutely. And while stem cell therapy is still in its early stages, the potential benefits are significant, and researchers are making steady progress.
It's encouraging to hear about these innovative approaches being explored in the search for a cure. What other areas of research are showing promise in the fight against ALS?
Researchers are actively investigating the role of inflammation and oxidative stress in ALS,
Okay.
developing drugs that specifically target these destructive processes. It's a multi-pronged approach, attacking the problem from different angles.
Right. And we can't forget about the gut microbiome.
Yeah, the gut microbiome.
A fascinating new frontier in ALS research. You mentioned earlier that there's growing interest in its potential role in modulating the immune system and influencing the progression of ALS.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that?
So emerging research suggests a link between the gut microbiome, the diverse community of bacteria living in our intestines,
Right.
and the development of neurodegenerative diseases,
Right.
including ALS. It's like a hidden ecosystem within us
Right.
that might be influencing the course of the disease.
It's amazing to think about the interconnectedness of our bodies and the intricate ways that different systems can influence each other.
Yeah.
What are the implications of this gut microbiome research for ALS?
So researchers are investigating whether manipulating the gut microbiome
Okay.
through dietary interventions or fecal transplants
Right.
could have therapeutic benefits for individuals with ALS.
So it's a new frontier in ALS research,
Yeah.
exploring the potential of harnessing the power of our gut bacteria to combat the disease.
Exactly. It's an exciting and rapidly evolving field with the potential to unlock new therapeutic avenues.
It's inspiring to see so much progress being made on multiple fronts
Yeah.
in the fight against ALS. It's clear that the research community is dedicated to finding a cure, and their efforts are giving us all reason to be hopeful.
Absolutely. And while the journey is long and arduous, every new discovery brings us one step closer to that ultimate goal.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this exploration of ALS, from its complex genetics and diverse presentations to the intricate cellular mechanisms driving its progression. We've delved into the challenges of diagnosis, the promising avenues of research, and the potential of emerging therapies. It's a complex and multifaceted disease that demands our attention, our compassion, and our unwavering pursuit of a cure.
It's a disease that affects not just the body, but the mind and spirit as well. And as we move forward in this fight, it's crucial to remember the human stories at the heart of it all. The individuals and families whose lives are touched by ALS.
Absolutely. So we've been focusing a lot on the clinical presentation, the intricate cellular mechanisms of ALS. But let's shift gears now and talk about the practical side of caring for individuals living with this disease.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a crucial aspect of this deep dive.
Right.
We've explored the science, the diagnosis, the potential treatments, but now we need to bring it back to the human experience of living with ALS and how we can best support individuals and families facing this challenging disease.
Exactly. And that's where the concept of multidisciplinary care comes in, recognizing that ALS affects multiple facets of a person's life, and that addressing those multifaceted needs requires a coordinated team effort. So it's not just about treating the disease in isolation, but caring for the whole person,
Yeah,
considering their physical, emotional, and social well-being.
precisely. A multidisciplinary ALS clinic might include neurologists, pulmonologists, physiatrists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech-language pathologists, dietitians, social workers, psychologists, and even palliative care specialists.
Wow, it's incredible to think about the breadth of expertise involved in providing comprehensive care for ALS. What are the key benefits of this multidisciplinary approach?
So, studies have shown that patients receiving multidisciplinary care tend to experience better outcomes,
Okay.
including improved quality of life, better symptom management, and even a potential for longer survival.
So it's not just about feeling better, but potentially extending life as well. It's a testament to the power of a holistic and integrated approach to care.
Absolutely. This coordinated approach ensures that all aspects of the patient's care are addressed in a timely and comprehensive manner, maximizing their comfort and well-being.
Let's break down some of the specific areas that this multidisciplinary team might focus on. We've touched on several of these already, but I think it's worth revisiting them in the context of this team approach.
Excellent point. Let's start with respiratory care, which is a critical aspect of ALS management, considering that respiratory failure is a common cause of death in this disease.
Right. We discussed the importance of pulmonologists in assessing and managing respiratory function. Can you elaborate on their role within the multidisciplinary team?
So pulmonologists are the experts on breathing.
Right.
They play a crucial role in monitoring respiratory function in individuals with ALS, using tests like spirometry to measure lung capacity, assessing oxygen levels in the blood, and vigilantly monitoring for any signs of respiratory muscle weakness.
So it's about early detection and intervention, addressing respiratory issues before they become life-threatening.
Precisely. Based on their assessment, pulmonologists might recommend interventions like non-invasive ventilation, which provides respiratory support through a mask that delivers pressurized air. They might also offer guidance on techniques to improve cough effectiveness and strategies for managing secretions, which can be problematic for individuals with weakened respiratory muscles.
It's remarkable how this specialized care can make such a significant difference in managing a critical aspect of ALS. Now let's shift our focus to nutrition, which is another vital area where the multidisciplinary team plays a crucial role.
Hmm.
We've discussed how dysphagia or difficulty swallowing
Yeah.
can become a major challenge in ALS.
Hmm.
How does the team address this issue?
So, dietitians and speech therapists work together seamlessly
Okay.
to assess swallowing function, recommend dietary modifications, and guide individuals on safe eating strategies. It's a collaborative effort to ensure that individuals with ALS are receiving the necessary nutrients while minimizing the risks associated with swallowing difficulties.
So it's about striking a balance between meeting nutritional needs and maintaining safety during mealtimes.
Exactly. Dietitians work closely with individuals and their families to develop personalized meal plans, tailoring them to specific needs and preferences. Considering swallowing abilities and any dietary restrictions, it's not just about providing calories, but ensuring that the food is both safe and enjoyable, enhancing the individual's quality of life.
Right. And speech therapists play a crucial role in assessing swallowing function, identifying potential risks, and providing guidance on techniques to improve swallowing and reduce the risk of aspiration.
Absolutely. They work with individuals to strengthen the muscles involved in swallowing,
Okay.
teach compensatory strategies, and explore modified food textures that are easier and safer to swallow.
It's a comprehensive approach to addressing a challenging symptom, ensuring that individuals with ALS can maintain their nutritional intake and enjoy meal times as much as possible. Now, what happens when swallowing becomes too difficult, even with modifications?
In those cases, a feeding tube might become necessary to
Relevant.
ensure adequate nutrition. The team provides guidance on the different types of feeding tubes available,
Got it.
helping individuals and their families make informed decisions about this option. It's about weighing the benefits and risks
Right.
and choosing the approach that best aligns with the individual's preferences and circumstances.
It's a sensitive and complex decision, and having the support of a multidisciplinary team can make all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about managing the physical limitations of ALS,
Okay.
such as muscle weakness and loss of mobility. What role do physical and occupational therapists play in this area?
Physical and occupational therapists are essential members of the ALS care team, working collaboratively to develop individualized exercise programs,
Okay.
recommend assistive devices, and teach adaptive strategies to help individuals maintain their independence and mobility for as long as possible.
So it's about empowering individuals to adapt to the physical changes brought on by ALS,
Hmm.
maximizing their functional capacity and enabling them to participate in activities that are meaningful to them.
Exactly. Physical therapy might involve exercises to strengthen remaining muscles,
Right.
improve range of motion, and maintain flexibility. It's about working with what's available,
Yep.
preventing further decline, and actively engaging in activities that promote physical well-being.
And occupational therapists focus on the practical aspects of daily living,
Yeah.
helping individuals adapt to the challenges they face in performing routine tasks.
Absolutely. They provide adaptive equipment and strategies for tasks like dressing, bathing, and grooming, helping individuals maintain their independence and dignity. They might also recommend assistive devices like wheelchairs, walkers, or braces to support mobility and enhance safety.
It's about finding practical solutions that empower individuals to live their lives as fully as possible, despite the physical limitations imposed by ALS.
Hmm.
Now, we've talked about the physical aspects, but what about the challenges in speech and communication that often arise in ALS, particularly in individuals with bulbar onset disease?
Yeah. Speech therapists play a crucial role in addressing these challenges. They carefully assess speech and language abilities,
Okay.
provide exercises to strengthen speech muscles, and teach compensatory strategies to enhance communication.
So it's about finding ways to keep individuals connected and able to express themselves, despite the challenges they face in speaking.
Exactly. Speech therapists are incredibly skilled in helping individuals adapt to changes in their speech, exploring various techniques and technologies to facilitate communication. If speech becomes too difficult, they might introduce augmentative and alternative communication methods,
Right.
such as communication boards or speech-generating devices. It's about providing a voice, even when the traditional means of communication are compromised.
It's inspiring to see how technology and therapeutic expertise can come together to bridge the communication gap and empower individuals to maintain their connections with loved ones. Now, we've covered the physical and communicative aspects of ALS care,
Yeah.
but it's important to acknowledge the profound emotional and psychological impact of this disease, not just on the individuals living with it, but on their families and caregivers as well.
Mhm.
How does the multidisciplinary team address this often overlooked aspect of ALS care?
That's a crucial aspect of comprehensive ALS care, recognizing that this disease affects not just the body, but the mind and spirit as well. Social workers, psychologists, and counselors play vital roles in the multidisciplinary team. Right.
Providing support for the whole person, not just the physical symptoms.
So it's about acknowledging the emotional burden that comes with ALS and creating a space for individuals and families to process their feelings and navigate this challenging journey.
Precisely. Social workers are incredibly skilled at connecting individuals and families with essential resources,
Right.
such as support groups, financial assistance programs, and community services. They help navigate the practical and emotional challenges of living with ALS, ensuring that individuals and families have the support they need to cope with this life-altering disease.
It's like having a guide, a compassionate advocate who can help navigate the often overwhelming landscape of resources and support systems.
hmm And psychologists and counselors provide individual or family therapy, offering a safe and confidential space to process emotions, develop coping mechanisms, and maintain mental well-being in the face of adversity. So it's about acknowledging the emotional toll of ALS and providing a space for open and honest conversations about the fears, anxieties, and uncertainties that accompany this disease.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that palliative care specialists can also be involved, focusing on maximizing comfort and quality of life for individuals throughout the course of the disease.
Right.
Palliative care isn't just about end-of-life care. It can be integrated into the care plan from the time of diagnosis,
Right.
emphasizing symptom management, pain relief, and emotional and spiritual support.
It's a holistic approach to care, recognizing that quality of life encompasses physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being.
Precisely. And palliative care is about empowering individuals to make informed decisions about their care,
Okay.
focusing on what matters most to them and living their lives to the fullest, even in the face of this challenging disease.
It's a beautiful and compassionate approach to care, honoring the individual's values and preferences while providing support and guidance every step of the way. This multidisciplinary approach to ALS care is truly remarkable, bringing together a diverse team of experts to address the multifaceted needs of individuals and families facing this disease. It's a testament to the power of collaboration
Yeah.
and the importance of recognizing that ALS is a journey,
Mm.
requiring support and understanding at every stage.
I couldn't agree more. It's about fostering hope, resilience, and a sense of community for those navigating the complexities of ALS.
Now let's shift our focus to the future of ALS research, exploring the exciting and promising avenues that scientists are pursuing in their quest for a cure.
So we've explored the complexities of ALS from its intricate molecular underpinnings to the profound human impact of this disease. But one crucial aspect we haven't delved into yet is the vital role of clinical trials in advancing the search for effective treatments.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Clinical trials are really the bridge between promising laboratory research and real-world applications for individuals living with ALS. They're the proving ground where scientific discoveries are put to the test, evaluating their safety and effectiveness in humans.
Precisely. Clinical trials are carefully designed research studies that rigorously evaluate new drugs, therapies, or interventions. They're really the gold standard for determining whether a treatment that shows promise in the lab translates into tangible benefits for individuals with ALS.
So it's about moving beyond the theoretical and into the practical, bridging the gap between scientific discovery and clinical application.
Exactly. Clinical trials involve recruiting volunteers with ALS who meet specific criteria and randomly assigning them to either receive the experimental treatment or a placebo, an inactive substance.
Right, and this randomization is crucial for minimizing bias and isolating the true effects of the treatment.
Absolutely. Throughout the trial, participants are closely monitored for any changes in their symptoms, disease progression, or potential side effects. This meticulous data collection is essential for understanding how the treatment performs in humans.
So it's a controlled experiment, carefully designed to gather real-world data on the safety and effectiveness of the new treatment.
Precisely. And this data is then rigorously analyzed to determine whether the treatment meets the predefined criteria for safety and efficacy, ultimately determining whether it should be approved for wider use.
So it's a long and meticulous process, but it's absolutely essential for ensuring that new treatments are both safe and beneficial for individuals with ALS.
Absolutely. Clinical trials are the cornerstone of progress in ALS research, but they also face unique challenges in this particular disease.
So what are some of the hurdles that researchers encounter in conducting clinical trials for ALS?
One significant challenge is the relatively small number of individuals with ALS. Recruiting enough participants for clinical trials, particularly for trials focusing on specific subtypes of ALS or requiring participants to meet stringent criteria, can be a significant obstacle.
So it's a matter of finding the right individuals who meet the specific requirements of the trial, which can be difficult given the rarity of ALS.
Exactly. Another challenge lies in the inherent variability of ALS progression. As we've discussed, ALS can progress at different rates in different individuals, making it difficult to definitively measure the effectiveness of a treatment.
Right. It's like trying to compare apples and oranges. Even if a treatment is effective, its impacts might vary significantly from person to person, making it challenging to draw definitive conclusions.
That's right. And the lack of reliable biomarkers for ALS adds another layer of complexity. Without clear biomarkers to track disease progression or treatment response, it becomes difficult to objectively assess whether a treatment is truly making a difference.
So it's like navigating uncharted territory without a compass to guide the way. But despite these challenges, clinical trials remain the most critical tool for advancing our understanding of ALS and developing effective therapies.
Absolutely. Researchers are continuously working to refine trial design, develop more sensitive outcome measures, and identify reliable biomarkers to enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of clinical trials for ALS.
It's an ongoing quest for improvement, driven by the urgent need to find effective treatments for this devastating disease. Now, for individuals interested in participating in clinical trials, where can they find information about ongoing trials and how to get involved?
There are excellent resources available. The ALS Association website maintains a comprehensive list of ongoing trials,
Okay.
providing details about the different types of trials, eligibility criteria, and locations. It's a valuable resource for anyone interested in exploring clinical trial participation.
So it's a centralized hub of information, connecting individuals with potential opportunities to contribute to research and access experimental treatments.
Exactly. The National Institutes of Health also hosts a website called clinicaltrials.gov,
Right.
a vast database of privately and publicly funded clinical studies conducted worldwide.
So that's a global resource,
Yeah.
expanding the opportunities for individuals to find trials that align with their specific needs and interests.
Precisely. And many ALS clinics and research centers maintain websites or newsletters that provide updates on ongoing trials and recruitment efforts.
So there's a wealth of information available for those who are proactive in seeking it out. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to emphasize that participating in a clinical trial is a personal decision
Right.
that should be made with careful consideration. Individuals should thoroughly discuss the risks and benefits with their healthcare providers,
Yeah.
ensuring they fully understand the implications before making an informed choice that aligns with their values and preferences.
Absolutely. It's about empowering individuals to make choices that are right for them,
hmm
based on a clear understanding of the potential risks and benefits.
Precisely. And it's important to remember that clinical trials are not just about finding a cure. They also contribute to a deeper understanding of the disease, refining diagnostic criteria, and identifying potential targets for future therapies. Every participant plays a vital role in advancing ALS research,
Yeah.
regardless of the trial's outcome.
So it's a collaborative effort, a collective journey towards a cure, with each individual contribution paving the way for progress.
Exactly. Clinical trials embody the spirit of hope and determination that fuels the fight against ALS. They are a testament to the power of scientific inquiry and the unwavering commitment to improving the lives of those affected by this challenging disease.
Well, as we conclude this deep dive into ALS, I'm really struck by the incredible complexity of this disease, the dedication of the researchers working tirelessly to unravel its mysteries, and the unwavering spirit of the individuals and families facing its challenges.
It's been a profound journey exploring the intricate interplay of genetics, cellular mechanisms, clinical presentations, and the profound human impact of this disease. We've delved into the challenges of diagnosis, the complexities of treatment, the promising avenues of research, and the vital role of clinical trials in advancing our understanding and finding a cure.
And through it all, we've really witnessed the remarkable resilience of the human spirit, the unwavering determination to fight for a brighter future, and the profound beauty of compassion and connection in the face of adversity.
ALS is a disease that demands our attention, our compassion, and our unwavering pursuit of a cure. By learning about ALS, supporting research, advocating for change, and embracing the human stories that drive our efforts, we can all contribute to creating a world where ALS is no longer a devastating diagnosis, but a challenge we overcome together.
Beautifully said. This deep dive has been a journey of discovery, a reminder of the power of knowledge, the importance of empathy, and the unwavering spirit of hope that fuels our collective quest for a cure. Until next time, keep diving deep, keep seeking answers, and keep believing in the power of human ingenuity to overcome even the most formidable challenges.